What's up, everybody? The wait is finally over and totally over. Left at Wall is available now, right now. You can get Left at Wall on Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube Movies. You can get it on demand. You can buy it on DVD. The wait is totally over. Just type in Left at Wall on your search bar on your smart TV, and you can find a bunch of ways to get it. You can watch it now. Again, that's Left at Wall, wherever you get your movies. What's up, everybody? Termination Fee is playing now as part of the Hollywood Fringe, and we got 4 shows left in June. Shout out to everyone who came to the premiere June 8th. Our shows remaining June 16th, June 21st, June 24th, and June 29th. Ticket information and times can be found at romplacone.com. Termination Fee is a play written by myself, featuring Sarah K. Godot, Andrew Saxena, and myself, being produced in collaboration between Fringe Management and Black One Productions. It is a scathing commentary on the American healthcare system, and Pay What You Can tickets are available now at romplacone.com. Again, those remaining shows are June 16th, June 21st, June 24th, and June 29th. See you there, Los Angeles. Episode 91, Robin Waite. Robin Waite is an author, mentor, and coach. I came across Robin's book, Take Your Shot, and I absolutely loved it. It used story to teach the principles of turning your passion project into a sustainable living. Robin narrated the audiobook himself. I couldn't stop listening to it. It used golf as the backdrop. Best part? I don't even like golf. I decided I needed to learn more about Robin and his story. Please welcome to the show, Robin Waite. Robin Waite, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Ron.
So I want to start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? What's your origin story? What was childhood like?
I'm still in Gloucestershire. I never left, in the southwest of the UK. And so for those who don't know England particularly well, imagine like on a tin of biscuits or a chocolate box, like a very typical like English countryside scene with rolling hills and that sort of thing. So I've always lived sort of locally in the area. I've had a couple of opportunities to sort of do work outside of that. And we were talking off air about being the country mouse to town mouse. And very much for me, it's like every time I get on that train to go to one of the cities here in the UK, I'm like, oh, the big city. And it gets very exciting for me. But growing up, what would you like to know? What would be helpful for your listeners?
Just whatever you want to share. I mean, like what did you play sports? Were you into clubs? Were you, what kind of planted the early seeds for doing what you do now, which we're going to jump into?
Of course. My sort of earliest memories of playing was just being very immersed in Lego. So I've always been like very, very structured and very measured. And literally I just lose myself for an entire day during holidays, like playing with my Lego. Or my dad was a carpenter for a period of his life, and he made these wonderful like wooden toys. So like wooden cars and things like that. So I used to set up like car parks and just play with my toys all day long. It's interesting though, because like so many grown-ups, I think, forget about that like immersive, like just deep play where you just like get into flow and nothing else matters in that moment, and you can lose like an entire like in hours or days. When I got a bit older though and went to school, so I did go to school in a slightly bigger city, and it was or bigger town, I should say, and it's a little bit overwhelming. I managed to find rugby, which is kind of like I think it's I'm probably going to offend a load of people, but it's basically a version of American football, but we don't wear helmets or like pads or anything.
We have rugby. Yeah.
There you go. So no protection. You just run at each other and like, sometimes hurt each other. It's just, but I played rugby for about 15 years, and like from school up to men's rugby, absolutely loved it. Just that whole sort of, the culture of it. And like, some of my best and oldest friends have come out of like playing, team sports over the years. But what was interesting when the rugby kind of subsided, I was due to go for, they call it Colts trials here, basically, where you go to, we have like a Premier League, and there's about a dozen teams which are at the top of the league, in terms of our rugby system here. and I was due to go for Colts trials at 17, and unfortunately got injured about a week before my trial. And it's like one of those sliding doors moments that I love watching rugby now, and I always have that thought in the back of my head, what if I'd made the Colts trials and played for Gloucester and then gone on to like play professionally for other clubs and things. And then interestingly, my inside, so there used to be an outside centre, inside centre in the backs, and we used to flip flop, but my other centre, he ended up playing for Gloucester and Worcester and went off on his career trajectory playing professional rugby and did really well. But it meant I had to make a choice about what I wanted to do next, and really at the time got into entrepreneurship. And you have to remember, this is like 1998-ish. So the internet's only been around for 8 years. It's very early in its sort of infancy. And
you're also a very young guy too, right? I mean, you're 17 years old.
Well, yeah. And I did a business qualification at school, like my final year at school. And I remember my business plan was for an internet cafe, cyber cafe, right? Which was like massive, like huge in like 1998, right? And my business teacher's like, oh, this internet thing's never going to take off, right? And I'm like, he just poo-pooed my idea in like one sentence. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this thing. So I didn't do the cyber cafe, but I discovered, so eBay was kind of very early in its infancy back then. And PayPal especially as well was kind of starting to take off around about that sort of 1999, 2000, 2001. And I set up this side hustle, and it was a bit of a happy accident. I wanted a really nice computer to do my internet-based work on, right? So I discovered these wonderful like Toshiba tablets, and you could, think about this, right? This is 1998, 99. You could spin the screen round, and so you either had a laptop or you spin the screen round and it was a tablet, right? This is like 25 plus years ago. It's incredible. I didn't, but and I bought this thing and it worked great. And then I noticed that nobody else was selling these online. I only paid like 500 quid for it as well. Like I got it as like a grade 2 listed one, which I found on a website somewhere. And I don't know why or how, but I saw an opportunity, and I got out. I had an egg credit card when I turned 18, which gave really good cash back. So I bought like 5 of these machines, as much as I could fit on the credit card. Went onto eBay and started selling them. So I was buying them for £500. So what's that, $700-800 or something. But I was then selling them on for £5,000, £6,000, like 10 times the price. I just lucked out. As construction sites wanted these laptops because they went into tablet form, and you put them in a hard case and they literally bounced. They were so rugged. And if something broke on them, it's like modular, plug and play. So you take out the disk drive that broke and plug in a new one. So I sold like 40, 50 of these things over the course of 9 months as like a spotty teenager and like just starting university. And that was my first proper sort of side hustle. And I just got the bug, and a lot of it back then as well. I'd go and drop these laptops off. So I'd buy them on eBay, and a few got bought through PayPal, but it wasn't online payments was still a little bit like people were skeptical of it. And I remember like one time went to deliver like 8 of these laptops to this person, this guy in Reading, and I like driving through Reading with like 30 grand's worth of laptops in the back of my car, thinking, if I get mugged now or something, right? Because I get mugged all the time, obviously, like living out in the countryside, right? And then he handed over 30 grand's worth of cash. And of course I did what every, sensible teenager does when they get handed a bucket load of cash. I bought a couple of cars and holidays and took my girlfriend away to Florida. And it was at that time, kind of really just not like, I wasn't like absolutely like loaded, but it was enough to like have a really nice sort of, start really to, I suppose, my entrepreneurial career. The bottom fell out of that market very quickly. I think either there was other people spotted what I was doing and then sort of piggybacked on the coattails of that, or a couple of container ships came over from the Far East or something with all these laptops, and then the market just kind of everything went super cheap. But in 2004, then I basically set up my first limited company with a friend of mine. So he was building PCs for people. He was building websites and things like that as well. So he was into tech and web and stuff like that. And he said, I noticed, Rob, you're selling these laptops and things. So it sounds like we could do some work together. And yeah, the rest is history. That was my first sort of proper business that we registered together in 2004, and haven't looked back.
So, how would you describe what it is exactly that you do? I mean, I know like coach is a pretty broad thing, but how would you kind of, just sum it up in a bite-sized descriptor?
Yeah, so I'm kind of so a lot of people don't understand the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a consultant. So basically, a coach is more of a guide, and they'll ask you well-formed questions, and they'll help you come to a conclusion about where it is that you're heading. A mentor for me tends to have like lots of worldly experience. They're 10 years older than you, perhaps, or 20 years older, and they've made all the mistakes and got all the t-shirts, and so they're more likely to sort of tell you and give you the path and tell you which way to go. And then you have the consultant who kind of works with you. They're kind of a mixture, and they'll work with you and do a lot of the work for you on your behalf, and then obviously you pay them for that. But I flip-flop, probably I'm about 50-50 coach and mentor. So sometimes people need to come to the conclusion themselves. Sometimes other people just need to be led to the answer. And that pisses a lot of coaches off. I hope it's okay to say that, because pure coaching is you don't tell people what the answer is. You're supposed to ask these questions and help them to figure it out. I find that a bit frustrating, and I know clients do as well. Sometimes they just need to be told. So, but I'm really lucky because the clients, the work I get to do now, I don't think there's many days where I get out of bed. I could probably count them in the last 9 years on, both of my hands when I haven't wanted to get up and do the work. I'm very fortunate to have kind of fallen into a career now that I absolutely love.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I want to get into how I found you. So, I'm at a point in the past couple years, I've kind of pivoted the way I do things a little bit. And, I come from the comedy and writing world. I am still in both of those worlds, but I was dwelling more in kind of the podcasting space, which I'm still in clearly, but I've also drifted into more of the film production space. So I've been pivoting what I do a little bit. And so I was looking for a lot of content, similar to what you make, and I came across Take Your Shot. And I know I said this to you in the email, but to kind of set it up, it was not what I was expecting in such a cool way. Like I was expecting this book on kind of pivoting and finding success, which it totally is, but it's in this really cool novel form. And I listened to the audiobook that I think you read it, right? Like it was you.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that was me. It was the awful voices as well. I won't give a spoiler alert, but yeah, with the characters.
No, I really, it was such a pleasant surprise, and I really, really liked it. And so let's dive into that a little bit. Like, how did you come up with the idea to do that book? Like, because it's a different approach.
Yeah, well, so first and foremost, it's not like it's not an original idea. There's lots of business books out there that are sort of told in story format, like parables. And I part of the well, let's rewind the clock actually, because it's useful to kind of like get it in the right timeline, and so hopefully
Sure.
It'll make a bit more sense. So I before I stepped into coaching, I ran the agency, which I started in 2004, and I ran that for best part of 12 years. And towards the end of that, so the last couple of years, my family started to grow. So I had, my first daughter was born about 2 years before the end of the agency. And then my second daughter was about to arrive. And like, for those who know agency life, it's probably similar to many industries. There was a lot of pressure we had lots of customers, like 180 customers. I had a small team of 4 people that I had to answer to each day. My business partner had recently sort of departed the business because he had a family himself that he wanted to sort of focus on. We did a lot of late nights. And then one day I just woke up and and it's one of those creeping things over time. You just end up getting burnt out through the process without realizing it. And one day I just woke up and I just had enough. I just couldn't face it anymore and didn't want to go back into the office on Monday. And that started this sort of journey. So in 2016, I started to wind the agency up. I was very fortunate somebody came in to buy the agency, or maybe an offer to buy the agency, not for much money, but enough that I could focus on, my youngest daughter, Sophie, we had a planned cesarean about 3 weeks after I shut the agency down. So I was able to take the money, just enjoy a bit of paternity leave, enjoy time with the family. During that time though, because I like people, so I wanted to get out meet some grown-ups rather than having all the conversations with my kids and stuff. And people were like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I don't really do anything now. Oh, what do you mean? Well, I sold, built this agency over 12 years and sold it. Oh, that sounds really interesting. Like, how do you do that? I was like, well, bribe me with coffee and cake and I'll tell you all about it. So I started informally mentoring basically for free coffee and cake because it was just nice to get out and talk about this stuff. And I'm passionate about it. Anyway, it started to get a bit more serious. So I put on a webinar, and the idea behind the webinar series I did was that I was going to reach other website design businesses. That's what we did previously, and sell them mentoring. So I did the first one, and there was like 80 people on it. And about 5 minutes after I'd finished, my phone goes. All right, that's weird. Didn't recognize the number. And there's this very excitable guy on the end of the phone. And he's like, that was brilliant, Robin. I've never heard anybody talk about business that way before. It's like so amazing. Like, I really want to, how do I work with you? Like, what do I? was like, whoa, hold your horses. Like, tell me, what is it you do? Tell me about your web design business. He goes, no, I'm not a web designer. I'm a golf pro. I was like, okay, how did you end up on the webinar then? He's like, well, a friend of mine was following you and suggested that I join. So, and so Russ, the guy in the story, became my first coaching client. And as I worked through with Russ, and off the back of the webinar, and I've obviously got a couple of other books and things, started doing speaking engagements, and I would tell a story about my journey with Russ because he was essentially my first proper case study, paying client. And eventually I told the story enough times, people were just like, you need to put that into a book. And so obviously the rest then is history. That became Take Your Shot. But there's another book, business book, if people are interested, called Built to Sell. And I thought, Ron, and please, if I'm talking too much, feel free to just jump in and ask stuff. When I left university, and school, that was it. I didn't need to read any more books. Now I'm smart and naive, bit whatever, arrogant, and got to that point where I was struggling with the agency, and I was like, maybe I should pick up a book and start to learn again because I'm struggling with this, and there has to be a better way. And the first book I picked up was a book called Built to Sell by an author called John Warrillow. And in it, coincidentally, he tells a story about a guy called, I think he's John Stapleton or something like that, who runs the Stapleton agency. So it's an agency like mine. And obviously it really resonated. And I just loved, I got through that book in like 4 hours straight, like proper thick book done. And then went straight back into page one and read it all over again. It had that much of an impact on me. And it probably was the turning point in my agency where, yes, I achieved burnout, but I also, everything that I learned in that book, I productized it and put it into my business. And that's the story which then comes out, vicariously through Russ, because I took him through the steps which I'd learned in Built to Sell and applied myself. And then it's like that monkey see, monkey do. It's like you watch it first, then you do one and like with some feedback, and then you go off and deliver one on your own. So that's effectively what I was doing. And there's something about the story frameworks, the bit which gets me every time people sort of get in touch. They say to me, oh, I read the first 2 pages and it felt like you were writing the book about me. And I get asked, like, where did you, like, was that Russ's, who are the characters, like, who's Russ, who's David in the book? Now, I'm not going to give anything away here, spoiler alerts.
Sure.
But it was really hard to get out of Russ his emotions. And so the only person I could draw on was my own experiences of like running a business over 20 odd years and put that into the book. So I think that's what gave it that sort of extra layer of realness, like rawness.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that even though, and hey, just for the record, I don't even like golf, but I could really just relate to, what that character was going through. And even the mentorship was just so apparent. And then, I wasn't even sure exactly what your deal was as I was going through the book. And then I looked you up later online and my assumption, and again, we don't want to like give anything away or whatever, but I felt like I'm like, yeah, he's a little bit of Russ and a little bit of David, like it really. That's my guess, I will ask you this, and this is kind of this is kind of me having a little fun here. David's voice when you did David's voice, it sounded like a British person trying to do an American accent. Is that what you were going for?
It was.
Okay.
Slightly,
I got a kick out of it.
I was trying like my hardest. I mean, maybe I should have like paid some actors or something to do it, but where's the fun in that, right? I
you
was
were
trying
great.
to give up like this older like guy who's kind of very, slow and kind of methodical and just, kind of had that very I wanted him to have that more authoritative sort of tone when I was going through and doing it. But I think my days as a voiceover artist are possibly behind me, Ron. I think next time I might get somebody else to do it. I don't know.
I actually really love it when the author reads it. I know that for some authors that's not, they're just that's really not their thing. I totally get it. But I love the way you did it. I got a kick out of it. But yeah, I was like, I think he's trying to do an American accent for this guy. So
it was supposed to be British and I'm British. That's probably, I don't know.
So what would you say are the keys to success?
It's a really good question. I mean, like I'm going to swear now, not like I'm going to swear metaphorically. I mean, it depends. Basically, so we have this thing at Fearless HQ that if you say it depends, it's a swear word because like it means it's too vague. Basically, you're doing too many things for too many different people. Basically, as a business owner, and you need to remove the variables. But I think success is down to the individual. So my definition of success for me is kind of, I suppose, threefold. And no particular order. So first and foremost, being in control of your own finances. We are fortunate in 2025 that we have this, like, we're a mobile workforce. We can literally set up and do anything from anywhere in the world. And there are people who are made for entrepreneurship. There are also people who are made for doing jobs, and it's a personal choice. If you get happiness out of, and enough money as you need from working, and it frustrates me when I know some people are I'm going to sound like a very now white middle class privileged like Brit. There are a lot of people out there who are on the breadline and struggling to feed their kids and various things like that. But I genuinely believe that there are ways that anybody can create opportunities for themselves. And I know it's very hard. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound like a privileged twat at all, but we live there is no time that is better than now to be able to start up a side hustle business, go into your garage and like sell a few things, like to make some extra money, jump onto Facebook Marketplace and trade your way up with a few items, and you can do all of that for free effectively. Like, go and find something for free, sell it for $10. Like, there's never been a greater time to be able to like be in charge of your own finances. I think so. Unfortunately, some people just get a bit stuck. So that's the first one, is like, do you have like financial freedom, choice to go and earn your own money? Second one is like, is what you do actually fulfilling? A very sad stat the other day that 40% of people in jobs are unhappy. Imagine that. 40% of people in the world. Like, I don't know how many people are working, but let's say it's 4 billion out of the 8 billion citizens on this planet. There's like 2 billion of them nearly walking around miserable, doing something they don't enjoy. How sad is that, right? So finding something that you're passionate about. And again, I'm lucky. I lucked out when I fell into coaching, through accepting the free coffee and cake and realizing that I ended up enjoying these conversations and loved the coaching process. Very fortunate. But again, like, go out and try some different things, find the thing you love. And then around that, also just freedom generally. I think we get very trapped in sort of daily life. School runs and work and friendships and getting caught up in the system. And actually, guilt-free time off is a muscle that needs to be exercised and stretched. And I wish more human beings realize this. I made a conscious decision a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, to not work on Fridays, to take it off. So I don't book any coaching. I don't book any podcasts. I don't book anything on a Friday. It's my day. If I choose to come into the office and do a bit of work or write or something like that, fine. But generally I keep myself occupied. I'll go and get a haircut, or I'll go to a local hotel, spa and have a massage or something like that, or take the dogs out for a nice walk if it's not raining. But again, you have to be intentional about giving yourself that freedom and practicing that guilt-free time off muscle. And I don't think enough people gift that to themselves. So that's my idea of success: is what you do is your life fulfilling? Do you have freedom to roam? Are you making enough money to kind of get by? And again, I know I speak from a place of like white, middle class privileged Brit, but I hope there's something in that people can kind of take away from it.
No, absolutely. So I actually wanted to get to this topic next, and you kind of touched upon it in your answer. I mean, we are living in an age where I think a lot of people, especially people where I'm at in the United States, there is this desire to kind of figure out a way to be completely location agnostic. When you have clients like that, what are kind of some of the steps you go through to help people achieve that?
So I always say to people, so let's say, for example, if you're running a business, because ultimately if you have a business, if you're not tied to a job, you can be anywhere, you can do that work from anywhere. So as a business owner, I would always tell people to start locally. Like whether you're a coach or a web designer or a consultant or a freelancer or a hairdresser or a dog groomer or whatever it is, start with a local audience, because generally people buy from people, and doing networking events is the fastest way to go and meet people and actually tell them what you do. And cut your cloth, sharpen your sword, doing it practice, getting good at the thing which you do. From there, I mean, this is what I did for the first 2 years of my coaching career. I just did local networking events. So here's a story for you, Ron. About 2 years into my career, so I'd gone through helping Russ and several other clients at this point, and somebody walked into my office, a female coach, and she said, I still remember the words to this day. She said, "Robin, I think I'm a better coach than you, but I don't understand why you're more successful than me." And I kind of went, really? Because I was so surprised that somebody would say something like that.
Yeah,
in my head, I kind of laughed a little bit. I didn't. I kind of kept poker face when she said that. But I then said, tell me about how many consultations, what activity have you done, recently? How many consultations have you done? And I didn't, not purposefully, but I left off the timescales, and she starts going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. Oh, 4 or 5. I went, oh, well, 4 or 5 consultations in the last week's not bad. And before I could carry on, she cut in. She said, oh, no, 4 or 5 in the last year. And I just said to her, well, listen, right, my first year of coaching, when I decided I was going to go for it, I did something like 38 speaking engagements across the county. I did 44 podcast interviews because I couldn't get in front of enough people on the big speaking circuit. So I set up my own event and ended up doing 12 big networking events to over 600 people. I did 2 other marketing events I had 200 and 300 people at each of those 2 events. I sat 125 consultations, and I booked 44 clients. And you could see her jaw was she realized that, so I say to people, when you're starting out, you've got to do a vast proportion of your effort happens in those first couple of years. And it's much easier if it's local. Build up your brand. And then that gives you, you'll start to see that people will start to be attracted from you. So I started to get clients, first client came from America about 3 or 4 years into my journey, and Canada came in, and France, and then gradually over time. And now I think I've got clients in about 26 or 27 different countries globally. I could take my business anywhere. Now here's something which is probably going to be a bit controversial. I would find it, me and my wife would find it really hard to move now. Despite the fact I have a global business, but our kids are settled in school. So when little people come along and now you have to make decisions on their behalf, it's really bloody hard, to then just make that decision. And I massively admire people.
You actually had something controversial to say. I was like, oh man, what's coming next?
But it is kids, if you're going to do the whole global, digital nomad, global living type thing, do it pre-kids if you've got the opportunity. If you've got kids, it just takes a bit of extra planning and chutzpah to get out and I've got a couple of friends actually who've recently moved out to Dubai, and they up sticks and took their family with them. And I have huge amount of admiration for the courage, because that couldn't have been necessarily an easy decision. I don't know if that's answered your question.
No. That was great. Yeah, no, I hear you, man. The digital nomad thing is definitely easier if you don't have kids in most cases, unless you're looking for somewhere else for them to go to school. But
yeah, some people are dead comfortable with it. I think part of what's held me back, and I'll be very honest, is growing up I didn't travel at all. We never.
yeah.
I remember one family holiday we went down to like Bournemouth in the UK. I never went on a plane on a family holiday. In fact, I've never been on a plane on a family holiday until I had my own family, and then was able to take them on family holidays. Now we've travelled around quite a bit on sort of holidays, and we're getting more adventurous with those. So I think potentially that's probably why I find it very hard, is because my parents didn't show me any of the world. We kind of just stayed where we were, you know.
Well, do you like it, or do you kind of like just being able to travel, but then still calling? Oh man, Gloucester. This is showing back to you. What's your town? Gloucester. Yes.
I always, you know, an American or Canadian, you ask them to talk about Worcestershire sauce.
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna risk it. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, do you like kind of just going back there?
Oh, I love it. I mean, obviously, it's my home. I've always lived here, and like I said, it's a blissful place to bring up two young girls. Like you don't feel at all unsafe here, and I think I hope, you know, we travel enough now, so we are starting to kind of broaden our horizons and take them further afield and kind of take them into the cities and stuff like that, and trying to wise them up a little bit. You know, for obvious reasons. I don't want them growing up sort of naive and not having had opportunities and things like that. But it's a beautiful place. Like, you know, we're 5 minutes drive from our local town. So we've got supermarkets, cinema, bowling alley, all schools and all the good stuff. But 5 minutes anywhere in any direction around here, we've got hills and woodland. Like, why would we not want that? I think Mrs. Waite's out of earshot, so I can say this. So I went on a recent business trip to Dubai, and it was my first proper taste of like the Middle East. You know, I've done a lot of Europe, been to America, and, you know, North Africa and places like that. But in the Middle East, Dubai is like incredible. I was just blown away by the ease of absolutely everything there. I mean, like, you know, getting on a yacht out there is like hailing an Uber. You could literally wow. In the morning, because I had a couple of friends out there that I just wanted to spend some extra time with, business contacts. I just kind of wanted to, you know, again, show my middle class privilege here. But like, it was £700 to hire a yacht for 3 hours for 10 of us to go around the Palm at sunset, right? And
just chat that 10 ways. That's pretty cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was my thought process. And to like one of the guys, like super influential, and you'd probably spend $15,000 just to hang out with him for 3 hours, right, on a 1-to-1. So I got like, it's like, well, if I get him on a boat, you can't get off on. So you know, that was my thinking. You know, got him for 3 hours for £700. But for the first time, it was the first time I've been to a place and thought, crikey, if I didn't have Charlotte and the girls, I wouldn't have gotten that plane home. It was like, this is like, it was brilliant, really eye opening. But I've realized within that if I shared with you about my health problems, because this is part of that story as well. Okay. Oh. So bombshell, this is kind of common knowledge now. I am starting to talk about it more. In August last year, I got diagnosed with something called a subependymoma. So for the non-doctors among us, that is a grade 1 tumor on my brainstem. So it sounds very serious, and it is, but it's kind of in many respects, and I've come to terms with this now, it's actually the best kind of brain tumor you can actually get. So it's benign and it's very slow growing. And of course, in the moment in August, very like scary, getting the news and the diagnosis, and like I went through all of the sort of trauma, the 5 stages of trauma when you go through like anger and denial and all the rest of it. But I'm so fortunate to have got it. And like, you know, in all the research that I've done, you know, the median age where people get diagnosed with this and have like serious medical problems is like mid to late 50s at the earliest, typically. So at the very least, I'm probably going to be okay for a good stretch. But what it did is there was lots of stuff that I was starting to stack up and put off. So like getting the staircase done in the house, like it's been on my wife's radar for ages. I'm like, no, don't need to get the stairs. There's only a set of stairs, you know, getting the fireplace done, or, you know, booking nice holidays and like, when you and are over a holiday, and then like you go onto it, you finally make the decision, you go onto Airbnb, and the Airbnb you've chosen has now been taken because you procrastinated on it, right? And then I've always wanted to travel with business. I've loved the idea of like getting speaking gigs in places like exotic places like Dubai and like, all over the world, like Hong Kong and LA, and places like that. And up until that point, just felt massive guilt. I've always felt guilty whenever I traveled. And Dubai, I was just like, do you know what? I've worked hard. I'm going to organize it. So it's like, my wife was like, well, you should have a nice time with out there. I'm like, no, I've got meetings planned for the whole thing. I did have a nice time as well. I booked a hotel by the beach with a spa. Okay. So I did have a nice time as well, but I got a load of business done whilst I was out there in Dubai, and it's incredible. But I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't had that diagnosis in August. I'd have put it off and put it off and put it off. And then in my 50s, when I'm David's age in the book, and it might have been too late, I wouldn't have known. So now it's like, we've got the fireplace done. We've booked the stairs in to get done. We've got two great holidays planned this year where Charlotte picked the Airbnb, and I was like, book it. Oh, but book it. Just book it. I don't want this conversation in 2 weeks that it's gone. Let's book it. It looks great. And then other stuff is like, rolling on from that as well. And work stuff specifically, where I've been a lot more strategic now in my thinking, like the small stuff, it's insignificant now, like totally irrelevant. Big stuff, sponsoring big conferences, which are expensive, but I know it's going to further my career, creating opportunities to come on great podcasts with the likes of yourself, and my dream podcast would be like, Steve Bartlett's Diary of a CEO, and actually believing in myself that might be possible. So that's a lot of stuff which has kind of shifted more recently for me. And so my point here is that if anybody listening to this is like, there's a place that you want to live, go and live and work, and it might be hard to get to, might be expensive in your eyes, get after it, make it happen. Do not delay, because the worst thing that you can have is regret, and not doing stuff.
Amen. Well, yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your diagnosis. I'm glad to hear you're like making it kind of making it work for you. And is it something? I mean, you could share whatever you're comfortable sharing, but is it something? So you said it's benign. Like, so will they be able to just eventually remove it, or like what's the typical process there?
Yes, there's no, unfortunate, just because of the nature of, I don't fully understand all of the ins and outs of it. It's the nature of the type of tumor. You can't zap it with chemo or radio or anything like that, radiotherapy. Okay. So, and essentially because it's on the brainstem, the area where it's grown is kind of quite important for things like breathing and swallowing and your bowel functionality, your movement, obviously, of your whole body and things like that. So we know it's there. I have some very minor symptoms that are annoying, but I can live with them. And it will have to get to a point where, there is a chance as well that it might never grow. So I have to have 6 monthly MRI scans where they measure it and see whether it's grown or not. So it might never grow. And if it does, what tends to happen is you get something called hydrocephalus. The brain fluid kind of makes all the pressure builds up. And then you can't see, and you kind of fall over lots and start convulsing. So at that point, when you kind of the risks of the surgery outweigh the symptoms, they're going through the back part of the cerebellum, which is the fuzzy part of your brain at the back down here, and then go into the brainstem, take out most of it, bar about 0.1 millimeters of it. Hopefully not catch the brainstem, and then wake me back up again.
Okay. All right. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, continued good health, sir. That is, that's
my view is by the time I'm like passing out and convulsing and can't see anything anymore, I'll probably be like, take the damn thing out. Except I won't have to say that because it's wild that when you find out about, just possible diagnoses that you didn't know about a couple minutes ago, you know what I mean? It's just the human body is just such a fickle, fragile thing. And we always find, I had
friends of mine, their child had something that sounds like similar to what you're describing, and he's only 2 years old. And at first they thought it was cancer. Then they found out it wasn't cancer. It was benign, but they had to remove it. But the way they had to remove it, he's probably, he's going to only have one eye when all's said and done. And yeah, well, one eye is a heck of a lot better than dealing with cancer at age 2, I think. So, he'll be all right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just wild when you find out about just all these things that, could happen to us as humans. And yeah.
Well, the mind is fickle as well. I remember going on a flight a while back, and the things that people get upset about and antsy about, like this kind of puts everything into perspective. Like when you get something like this, your life very sharply comes into focus. And I remember on this flight, it was the first time it was like American Airlines, the first time they put Wi-Fi on a flight or something like that, right? And it didn't work. And I'm sat next to this guy, and he's frantically like tapping away on his phone, huffing and puffing, right? And air stewardess comes over and she says to him, "Is everything all right, sir?" Because he's buzzing his thing. And she's like, "Bloody Wi-Fi not working. I go fucking when I'm doing it," like all this sort of stuff. And I couldn't help myself. I turned to him and I went, "We didn't have Wi-Fi on planes yesterday." Do you not realise how stupid this is, right? It didn't exist yesterday, and you're like fussing over this thing that didn't even exist yesterday. He's like, "Well, they told me this is going to be working today," and it's just I couldn't believe it. And you just think, like the stuff that this like the small stuff. This is what I'm talking about, that people like lose their shit over. Really, like it is quite insignificant. And I think one of the things it has done as well, Ron, I can share this with you because I think you kind of get this, right? I think it's brought the cantankerous old man in me out. Because I find myself like people like squabbling over stuff. I don't know, at the supermarket, right? People like, "Oh, should I buy this? Should I buy that?" And "Oh, why are you so stupid? Why do you say so?" I find myself going like there's a couple like arguing over which pancakes to buy the other day, and I just went through the middle of them. I was just like, "They're just fucking pancakes," and walked off. And I just stood there just like, what just happened there? But it's like that that 80-year-old version of yourself that is like screaming to come out sometimes.
Yes. Well, what would you say is the key to longevity?
Don't get a brain tumor on your brainstem.
Fair. That's
no, in all seriousness, I think less stress the better, really. Again, like without having a downer on this, I lived in I had a very stressful upbringing. My parents worked incredibly hard, and I am grateful for it, but I'm also ungrateful for it because I would rather have taken. So I again, bit privileged. I went to private school, albeit I got an 80% scholarship, so I contributed a vast proportion to that. No, Mum keeps on telling me, "Oh no, we paid for your school," and I was like, only 20% of it. But I'm incredibly grateful for it. But I would rather have sacrificed that schooling to have spent more time with Mum and Dad and gone on nice holidays to nice places and actually been able to chill out with them. It's not till my dad's sort of later life, because he passed away sort of 13 years ago. No, less than that, 12 years ago. And it wasn't until sort of the latter part when I really got to know him just before he died, where I realized actually he's not this shouty, like stressed out guy that I got to know as a child growing up. Actually, he had a tough upbringing himself and didn't know any better, and brought that forward into him being a father and whatnot. And kind of, I just felt really sad for him at that point. And so I've tried to move forward with my life, kind of just trying as best I can to like keep stress to a minimum. Patience, I think, is like a huge part. The greatest lesson I've learned from my girls is patience. Not least because like kids, everything takes forever, right? From putting their shoes on to getting their pajamas on to brushing their teeth to waiting for them to eat their food. Like everything just takes that little bit longer. It's a lesson to parents you should be more patient, right? And enjoy this moment, not try and rush your way through it. So that I reckon that probably now every day where I practice a bit of patience and a little less stress and a bit of extra gratitude, I reckon I'm probably gaining an extra 30 seconds or a minute on my life. I think collectively by the end of it, hopefully that will add up to something significant.
Well, what would you say is the key to happiness?
Ooh, that's a deep one. I can't answer that because I wouldn't say that I've ever been truly happy.
Okay. So not even now? No, it's okay. What does it mean to be truly happy then?
So the happiest moment in my life, the greatest amount of joy in my life, I could go with the cliched answer, when the girls popped out of Charlotte's belly and, we had 2 planned cesareans, but that was probably for me, like a 9.8 out of 10. But my 10 out of 10 moment was when the girls are a little bit older and I took it upon myself to take them away for a few days. So it was a proper daddy and daughter holiday for a change, rather than all of us going or me sort of leaning on Charlotte to do stuff. And then I just had this vision on my favourite beach down in Woolacombe, sun's setting. I'm drinking my favourite non-alcoholic beer, just sat down chilling, and the girls are playing. And then just as the sun hit the horizon, so I went out of focus there, the sun's hitting the horizon, the girls walked down to the beach, the edge of the sea, hand in hand, and I was like, perfect. Yeah. Everything, whatever had gone on in my life, again, was insignificant to live that little moment. And I'd say that for me was like pure joy. And, trying to find ways to kind of recreate those little moments. Like, I think that's ultimately what, the secret to happiness is, finding those moments.
And knowing when they're there, I think, right?
Yeah.
Robin, thanks so much for doing this. Where can people go to learn more about you?
So I have a gift actually. So we've talked, it'd be really unfair to talk about the book and then not tell everybody where they can get it. But I've actually got a gift. I've got some signed copies that I would love to give to your listeners and people watching this. So they can get that at fearless.biz/TYS. And then, if anything's resonated, just head on over to robinwaite.com. You can find all my socials and things on there as well. Shoot me a message.
Robin, thanks so much for doing this. It was awesome talking to you.
My pleasure. I hope I didn't go too deep or dark with anything. I hope it was what you were expecting.
That was Robin Waite. Check out all of his stuff. Music for the 1000 Podcast is provided by Andrew Saxon. Be sure to check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review, would you? This is still a very new show. Every 5-star review helps. And if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, you can do so over at patreon.com/romplacone. For a giveaway you can level, you get all kinds of cool content. You get the 1000 episodes before they're released to the public. You get full stand-up clips not available anywhere else. You get insider information into new films and projects. And we do a Zoom hangout once a month. It's a really cool way to connect with a bunch of like-minded people. It's a really great community over on Patreon, and that's all for a give what you can level. All right, episode 91. This is, you know where I'm going to go here. 1991, Nirvana just dropped Nevermind. What more can be said? Nevermind, an absolute masterpiece. I mean, that album changed my life. I mean, what more can you say? 1991, Nevermind was released. Now, of course, I did not discover it that year. I discovered it a few years later. How many years later? Well, we're going to have to wait until the appropriate episode. I will give one kind of hint. It is before 100. I'll say that much. All right. Catch you next week. Peace. Hey guys, Ron Placone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1,000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1,000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.